Hey, folks, how's it going? It's another edition of 4th and 4, the Belly Up Sports pregame show for all your football needs here. Zach Kyleman in hosting as always. Week 17 is upon us, 2 weeks away from the NFL postseason and deciding who's going to be those number one seeds in both those conferences. I'm going to bring in my buddies from High-Low Sports that are always on me with the show, as we got Kelsey Coyne and DJ Stewart from High-Low Sports joining in as the usual suspects. Gentlemen, how are we doing? I know we're not the crew's not in the same spot this week. We're separated a little bit because I definitely know I've been over there. I know the DJ's not in the same place. That is a different locale for sure. Where are you at, man?
Right now we're hanging out in Columbus, which good thing that the Buckeyes were able to survive that Rose Bowl because this place might be on fire if they ended up losing that one as well too. But we're heading on down to Indianapolis so we could catch that Colts Raiders game. As you mentioned, teams fighting for a playoff spot. I want to see some of this in person. So nothing quite like playoff stretch football. Already got to see Herbert versus Burrow. Now let's see Carson Wentz, JT versus Derek Carr in squad as well too, with a lot on the line. So nothing like this time of year, and let's catch some live football right now. So,
well, I mean, first of all, two things: like you were already catching a live football in Indy this weekend. You were already going to be there. Let's not sugarcoat it. I mean, Hunter Renfrow, yourself, your alter ego, will already be there.
Let me rephrase. I'm getting my mom's two favorite people in the same building at the same time now. DJ had to get the living upgrade too before he went down there. He had to fill that nice living arrangement beforehand. It's a nice hotel. Let's not get it twisted now.
Kelsey, you all right handling the dogs right now?
Oh, man, yeah, it's fantastic. Let me tell you, they are super ecstatic with all the fireworks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's probably a blast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, no, they're having a good time. There's just both asleep on the bed, so we won't see them making too many appearances today.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a chance we just see one pop up out of that bottom corner, like, woof.
Yeah, DJ, I hear a bark in the background, that's for sure.
DJ, you gotta be careful. If you run into Hunter Renfrow, the universe might collapse in on itself. They say you can't run into your identical, or at least your same person in a different timeline. Just be careful now.
When they were talking about how the Colts were having COVID issues and you didn't know who was going to suit up before they changed the guidelines stuff, I was making the joke like, hey, Indianapolis, you could sign me just to guard him because just me being across from him, it'd be like he's being guarded by his reflection. That might trip him up a little bit. Maybe I whisper things like I'm inside your brain, and it completely ruins his route as well too. I beat him in mind games.
Hey, spoiler alert! This is how the new Doctor Strange multiverse of madness starts.
Well, I guess I wasn't going to give the spoiler away, but yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind too. But they changed the protocol, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'll just be observing casually instead.
Right? Yep. Hey, NFL is cutting it down to 5 days, getting away from that 10 days. So it is, to me, it kind of comes. It's funny. It wasn't even how we were going to start this, but it almost comes off. I'm curious, do you guys think? To me, it's almost too little too late in a way, just because of how late in the season and how many games have now started to feel impacted by said, similar rules. Albeit, I don't know if anyone really saw those things getting hit the way they did this year compared to, say, last. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I like it. I'm okay with them changing the rules to fit the CDC protocol. It's what it is. Like, it is protocol at this point in time. Like, sure. It's not the NHL where we have Canadian teams to worry about. So, you don't have to worry about getting a waiver for those type of guys if they get test positive. But I think this will be better because we won't see as many, 170 people in 3 days testing positive. Like, that was insane. So I think this will be a little bit better for sure.
I would agree with that one as well too. And it's not like the NFL just changed its rules because they were losing quote unquote prime time spots or that. They literally followed the Centers for Disease Control that has, as far as we know, no rooted vetting interest. I'm pretty sure they didn't just look back. Damn, we had to see Nate Mullins play. We don't want that. We're changing the guideline rules for everybody as well too. Carson Wentz might miss this game. Nope, changing the rules. Quentin Nelson, I don't think they changed it just based on COVID protocol. So considering the situation, I don't see really a problem with it as well too. And it doesn't really change anything for the vaccinated players either because you're still rarely getting vaccinated or getting tested either way. And the unvaccinated players are getting tested pretty much the same way as well too. Nothing really changes other than how long you're away if you don't have symptoms. Because if you do have symptoms still, you basically sit out until those symptoms resolve and you are showing a clear improvement. So the players who do get it but don't have the symptoms, it pretty much just allows them to get back. So you're not sitting 2 weeks when you're like, I'm fine. And then you have like maybe the mildest of cough or something. So it allows those who unfortunately are not directly heavily affected by it personally to be able to get back out there as well too. So I don't hate it. It's following literal legal guidelines at this point. So who knows? It's better than what the NBA is going through right now. And the NHL too, like they're going through an absolute mess because they kind of have to with those different, as Kelsey mentioned, different countries and stuff. So you don't have to worry about that. I don't see a problem with it right now. Granted, there are some Raider fans that are probably like, first you do this with the Browns game, and now you're doing it with this game. Why? So you never know, and that's just the little gentle tease to Raider fans.
Or you're Baker and you're looking back going, Nick Mullins did well, but what if I was in? And then you'll have Browns fans going, well, what if you were in? I don't know what we'd get anymore.
Did he not find out what would happen? But no, look, like all you have to know about the CDC is one of their biggest labs and where they do their most testing at is in Atlanta. So they definitely do not care about anything happening in the NFL right now because they're still haunted by 28-3.
Oh, sure. Of course they are. They say that the spirits of those lost possessions loom to this day.
Little did we know that's what set off COVID.
Just 5 years in advance.
Just a really long time to get into the general public.
Well, it's when Kanye spent the quarantine in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He allowed it to get out. That's how.
Oh yeah. That's weird.
Dun, dun.
Anyway, back on track. Back on track from that weird slant. It's been a week, kind of unification in the weirdest way for football fans. It's a somber moment. This past week, 2 days after Christmas, 2 days after a special in his honor came out, as we begin our news segment for quarter number one, talking the biggest news stories of the week in the kickoff. Our football legend in terms of coaching, broadcasting, even the video game space, John Madden, passed away this week at the age of 85. There isn't really a definitive cause of death. However, it was a shock to many as it was proclaimed, and really brought the NFL community, really the football communities together, and kind of reminiscing and also bringing to light many things that maybe some people from younger generations like myself or others that say are football fans that didn't really look back or not realize certain things about Madden's career, kind of touch light on it, because he really did have an influence, not only just as coaching prowess and, kind of innovation, but same thing goes broadcasting wise. He made many a change into how we view the game today and how we, the general audience, expect a broadcast to be interpreted today. I mean, video games, it's a whole nother story on that front, but the broadcasting one is, in my retrospect, amazing. When you think of Madden, what's your guys' thoughts on John Madden? I mean, we're all roughly the same age group, but I mean, we've all have different paths in our lives or experiences in the football landscapes ourselves.
So, I mean, I grew up in a household full of football fans first, and then my mom was a Raiders fan, so she grew up in the Madden era of coaching, and so obviously I knew all about John Madden growing up, and that's the thing, like, between my dad's football knowledge, my mom being a Raiders fan, I heard it all the time growing up. And then hearing him on TV, it was something else. And he was a lineman, like as a former lineman, Zach, I'm sure you can attest to this. Like, yes, hearing him actually applaud linemen during a cast was like, wow, that's something cool. Like, I want to be that offensive lineman he puts on the All Madden team. And that's a whole nother thing. That All Madden team, talk about something that it made people play for more so than a Pro Bowl. Getting put on the All Madden team was pretty special too. And that's like, man, when I think back, I think just like the enamorment in it, I guess, is the best way. I was so enamored by him, and when he was in the booth, you try to emulate that if you had the opportunity to. We get the chance to do it on Colorcast, and take a little bit of what he did and what he made fun and made an ugly game beautiful, if you will. And that's something that not a lot of people can say they were ever capable of doing. And who would have thought an All-American lineman is the guy who is able to do it, of all people.
That's true.
So, absolutely, as well too. I just look at it too, and he kind of ruined broadcasting for everybody that came after him, because he set the bar so incredibly high. And you look at those who've had to follow him, like when he left the NBC booth, in came Chris Collinsworth, and I remember hearing that, I was like, oh, that's fine. And it's not even trying to throw anything at Chris Collinsworth. It's like, it's not quite the same. Regardless of what your thoughts on him are, but he doesn't, from everything he did, from drawing the X's, the O's, doing a 30-minute soliloquy on Gatorade buckets at one point, the Turduncan, everything he did. He made a game of brutality. He turned it into a sweet science, if you will, the way he broke it down, all of the plays. And it's funny because me and Kelsey talked about this. In his days, a Raiders coach was pure toughness, grit, grinding, like that sort of thing. Like, I'm just going to punch you harder than you punch me. And then as the game changed as well, too, he changed with it, even without being directly as a coach. He was still able to break down all those nuances of passing concepts, all of that down, and basically turn it into English, if you will. He turned an absolute messy science equation to some people into pure English, where even as like an 8, 9, 10-year-old, they're like, oh, wow, I know how to beat cover 2 now. Like, now you see 8-year-old kids in flag football dissecting coverages because of how he led that and basically turned football into a cerebral game. And I grew up in a house full of Raider fans in a similar way. And we knew Madden. Like whether you liked it or you loved it, you knew Madden, and it was kind of engraved in you. So I'm going to always remember him for having basically 3 different Hall of Fame type of careers: a Hall of Fame coach, a Hall of Fame broadcaster, and of course a Hall of Fame architect. When you look at what he did in the video game for football, they're like, well, we might have to trim the guards and the titles. Like, nope, 11 on 11, make it happen. Oh, okay. Well, there we go. And basically making that possible. So giving them an old playbook so they could build plays, like the amount of things he did as well for that. So just 3 different Hall of Fame careers from a football perspective, and just so much fun when we're broadcasting as well, too. If we ever got the chance to play with the little outline thing and draw the numbers, draw the plays, scribble all over the damn place, that's been a dream to always get a chance to do that.
Give me a telestrator. Give me a telestrator. I will have an absolute blast.
Can we incorporate that for next season? I would gladly do a telestrator type of segment if we can get one.
Every one of you would have a beard on their face, whether you have a beard already. You would have a drawn-on beard or a handlebar mustache. I'd finally be able to grow a official beard. only on this show. That's
fine. You'd find a way to erase mine, or I'd look like Homer Simpson or something like that with all the yellow marker. John Madden, to me, I knew him very much more as broadcasting really at the tail end. I mean, I'm for those that are out there, I'm 26. So my memories of football were pretty much 2005 ish, like when Lovie Smith was with the Bears. I remember him with NBC broadcasts, I just loved his goofy, very down to earth style at the time. Even that was the tail end, not say like at the top of his game, but still was even at the end of his tenure in the broadcast booth, he still had his marquee moments, you got to admit. And I love the down to earth, like humanish type of feel that we get from him. It doesn't always appear with color commentators. Some try, I think, a little too hard, and that comes out in modern day. Like, for example, last week, and not to knock one person, just because, but we talk about color commentating. What makes a color commentator? And to me, Madden's explanations help that. So giving the game a light as to what the audience expects from a certain play and understanding of it, but also being able to not come out as phony or not over deliver on it, not try to one up your fellow man in the play-by-play booth. For example, my dad despises Tony Romo, but that's because I think it's a little bit of the play up type of thing. But I also say someone that can understand football isn't good for that role because it's not a human type of connection. For example, Aqib Talib, he understands the defensive side of things, but I wouldn't say he's good in terms of connecting with an audience to where I want to listen to him. Madden was able to somehow blend that, and he also innovated in terms of how that position in a broadcast setting is done. Things I didn't realize before, say, all Madden, or even researching after his death on trying to understand his legacy further. For example, before he joined the broadcast booth, no one was interviewing coaches, players, and personnel before games. I didn't realize that was a thing that he essentially changed overnight, because CBS had been doing it so long, and so are others in the industry, that it was just kind of a standard for them to just go in with what the press releases were from teams. And he wanted to hear from the voices on the field, which, to a person sitting at home, that makes sense. It's just that it hadn't been done so long. I think that was incredible. Another thing too, I didn't realize either that, if you look into some things in terms of rundown of some Madden stories, he's kind of indirectly credited with the creation of the first down marker line, because he also hinted that to Fox broadcasters. Why don't we have this on broadcasts? It makes it easier for us to call plays and to announce information to people. It was all about letting people enjoy the game as much as possible, making it easier to get over those hurdles. And that's still a thing that some people have. A good color commentator like him, that's the bar, because he helps so many make this game much more popular for the casual fan, not just the diehard people that already know, but for the people that want to enjoy it with their friends that love the game as much. That's the specialness of his character and what his impact to the sport was, besides coaching or even, gaming, if you want to, and making it even more a casual mainstream product.
Yeah, absolutely. It always felt like when they were calling a game, they were sitting right next to me on either sides of the couch as well, too. And I could look over and just give them a nudge. Like, you're right, John. I know, or something like that as well. They had a very unique way of welcoming you in and just feel like they were sitting right next to you on the couch.
Yeah, and to your point, Zach, he was that guy that kind of took it from what you saw on TV before that, a bunch of dudes in suits, right? Mm-hmm. That was the idea of a play-by-play color commentator. Before that, it was a bunch of dudes in suits, really stuffy, kind of called a basic game. DJ, you talked about this in one of our color casts. You when you were going through college, you had to do a play-by-play game, and one of the guys you had to do it with, they were like, did not understand the sport at all. So they were like, wow, that guy's tall. And like, stuff like that. That's basically what these play-by-play guys were before Pat Summerall and before John Madden. And especially when they get teamed up, it was just like revolutionary. I mean, so it took it, to your point, from really inauthentic to about as authentic as you could possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm. So many great moments from his career. And it's funny how people don't recognize the coaching side of it as much too, because of how much he did just to the casual audience, to those that are just in the public spectrum. I mean, he was a commercial icon in his own right. How many different things. I mean, if you didn't want, I don't know if you guys have watched it, but if you haven't, you got to watch all Madden. And I was lucky enough to watch it on Christmas Day because I was working on Christmas Day at the station I'm at. It was playing on our Fox stations there. And first off, it's very well done. Like, I was really impressed with the quality of it, the interview style, the cinematography for it. And of course, Madden's watching the entire thing as it's being produced too. So it's kind of a personal touch as he's reacting to things. But, you get those little stories like that. And, you learn along the side, reappreciate his legacy at the same time. It's strange how in 2 days after that, it's like, it's the perfect kind of like, I would say, piece to say, if someone asks who John Madden was, I'm like, this will give you everything you need to know, in just about an hour's time.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Honestly, the one thing I took away from that I completely forgot about, it never dawned on me when I was growing up, was just how late into his life and into his post-coaching career he was actually inducted in the Hall of Fame. It never dawned on me that was like, wow, that was in the 2000s. Like, that's how late it was. So
it's crazy how big of a deal that was at the time too.
Yeah, and like I didn't dawn on me back then, and I never really thought about it, and just it was what popped up out of that conversation from the All Madden show that I was like, man, that was like halfway through my life. It feels like it wasn't. It was like 14 years into my life, but still.
Sure. It was a big moment though. It's kind of hard to forget. It's kind of hard to I would say kind of go, oh crud, yeah, that's right. Because anymore you're like, well, duh, he was a Hall of Famer. I mean, look at his career. But it was that one point because they still were like on the fence, like, well, is he going to come back to coaching back then? And then like it eventually slipped up in the Hall, and then finally they just readdressed it with enough public attention. And luckily, I mean, not even luckily, it would have happened either way, even posthumously. I think that would have happened similar to that, like, not to compare, but say like how Kobe Bryant was instantly inducted at that point. Because I mean, you have for history of basketball, you have to have someone like Kobe Bryant. For the history of the NFL, to a different degree, of course, you have to have someone like John Madden. They have to be in there. They're legendary for their own rights and the status and the images they created.
Yeah, no, exactly right. It's like it's oddly, it's bittersweet, right? Like,
yeah,
we got to relive him on Christmas Day, and then all of a sudden he's gone. But at the same time, he's like, man, he lived a full life. You look at it, and you talk about legacy. Like, obviously, legacy means so many different things to so many different people. But it's always for me how you left an impact on other people. And I mean, you want to talk about a guy who left impact on other people. I don't know if there's a single American who has watched a football a day in their life who doesn't know who John Madden is at this point in time. Whether it be through the video game, whether it be through watching the football game, knowing him from being an older person who saw him coach, or even in the booth. I don't know a single person in today's day that doesn't know the name Madden.
Yeah. It's a good way to wrap that up. Indeed. Yeah. John Madden will be missed. Again, lived a full life. 85 years is a long, long time. And it's a full life in terms of all the stuff he was able to accomplish even then. I mean, remember, he retired at 42 from coaching, was already over 100 wins in 10 seasons, and could have kept going. But he made what was already going to be a Hall of Fame career much more astronomical than I think people would have ever imagined back in 1977. So impressive career and impressive life. Far is legend is never going to die for someone that magnitude. So rest in peace, John Madden. We'll give a moment of silence here before we move on to quarter number 2. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is DJ's Bets. Quarter number 2 is underway. This is the moment in the show where DJ's going to give you all the top pieces on what you might want to be dropping your money on this week. All the ins, outs, you name it, things to look for. This is his time to shine. DJ, take it away.
Well, last week we didn't do so hot. Well, we did get right, those Bears 6.5 at Seattle. We tipped the Bears to cover, and not only did that, they managed to pull out the win. So you won some money there. If you weren't careful, though, Chargers 10.5 over Houston. I expected the Chargers to cover that. Didn't expect them to get mollywopped by the Texans. Detroit plus 240 underdog at Atlanta. Did not hit that one. Vikings versus Rams 48.5 under 48.5. We said take the under. Well, unfortunately, they just got over it during a fourth quarter explosion. Pats versus Bills 43.5. Take the over. We got that one. Chiefs Steelers 45.5. We said take the under, and they hit 46. So depending on which sportsbook you went with, maybe you picked they had 46 and you took the under, you'd have been okay. But last week wasn't our best bet. So moving on this week, we're going to try and win a whole lot more money this week. We'll start with the Chiefs getting 5.5 against the Bengals. Look for the Bengals to cover that. Even though the Chiefs are still the best team in the AFC and all that sort of thing, they can lock up the number 1 seed. The Chiefs might still win this, but this year they have been weirdly terrible at holding the spreads. And a lot of their games will be favored by 7, 8, 9 points, and they'll win by 3 or 4. I don't know what it is about the Chiefs this year, but they don't cover quite like the Chiefs they used to. They just casually win. And the Bengals still have a ridiculous amount of firepower, as we've seen. 2 1,000-yard receivers, a 1,000-yard rusher, and a 4,000-yard passer. All of them children, nonetheless, as well, too. All of them younger than me. So they will find a way to get some points on this Chiefs defense regardless. Look for them to at least cover. Whether you pick the Chiefs or the Bengals, I think it will be very close. We're looking 34-31, something along those lines. I expect for it to be a bit of a barn burner. Cowboys 5 points over Arizona. Who would have thought we'd say that 2 months ago as well, too, considering where Arizona was? I take the Cardinals to cover this one as well, too. The Cowboys, they've been shaky. I know they're coming off absolutely destroying the soul of Washington and FedEx Field and everything that was once associated with the nation's capital. But that's take it with a grain of salt, because that's kind of what they've done throughout the season. Is they will absolutely blast the teams they are better than, but the other teams that are in the playoff-ish hunt, they're really close with. Even when they do win, they play the Chargers, it's razor close. The Raiders, it's razor close. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's razor close. And then they'll beat the brakes off of Atlanta, Washington, teams like that. So look for this one to be relatively close. Arizona is reeling. They need a win badly. Look for Kyler Murray and his Mr. Krabs legs to get rolling in this one to try and bounce back. And I think they will at least cover that 5-point spread. Even if the Cowboys win, I think that one's going to be razor close.
Hold the phone here. Mr. Crab.
You know the sound that Mr. Krabs legs makes when he's running in SpongeBob? Imagine, hear that sound when next time Kyler Murray runs. You'll never get out of your head.
Oh my God.
That's all you're going to hear when you see Kyler Murray scampering now. Just so you're aware. It's in your head now.
Thanks for ruining it for me.
He got me a couple weeks ago on Colorcast on this. Don't worry.
Once I heard it, I couldn't unhear. But anyway, we're moving forward now. 49ers getting 12.5 points over Houston. Take Houston to cover this one. I think 49ers will win. They'll probably win by 10. But I don't know about 12.5. Trey Lance's first start. They do have a few players out as well, too. Well, I think they're going to be okay, but they're going to be really conservative. They're probably going to be up like 24-7 or something, and then Houston gets that late touchdown as Davis Mills just rips a touchdown to Brandon Cooks or something, because Davis Mills has been weirdly effective throughout the season. Not great by any means, but he's had some moments. He's looked pretty good. He looks like a guy that if Deshaun Watson gets traded, released, or whatever ends up with him later, you at least have a quarterback. You can give him another year, see what he has. I mean, he at least has shown more promise than some other guys have this year. So look for Davis Mills and them to not get destroyed by more than 12.5 points as well. And then looking as far as the money lines, Miami getting plus 142 against the Titans. Those are pretty relatively even teams. The Miami Dolphins, arguably the hottest team in the league right now, winning 8 in a row now, if I'm not mistaken, 7 in a row. Mm-hmm. Tennessee kind of reeling, getting back on track the last couple of weeks, getting past the 49ers and then stumbling against the Steelers as well. Like, really close one there, but I think I'm going to take Miami just because plus 142. A lot of the lines are close this week, but that's a good chance to win 100 and get 42-ish or so back. Now for Kelsey's favorite part, the over-unders. We're going to start with the Colts versus Raiders, 45 points. I think we got to take the over in this one because the Colts, since that 0-3 start, are averaging 30 points a game. If they win in an absolute blowout. They win like what they do to the Texans, 38-0. And for the Raiders, they pretty much score 17 points every week, or in the game that they win or are competitive and they score 30. There's basically neither team is going to be successful if they don't score 30 points. So either I think the Colts could win handily in a 30-15 something type thing and cover the spread, or it's going to be a shootout and end up being like 38-31. So I'd be surprised if this turns into a defensive stalwart, especially because both teams look to be relatively healthy. Pretty much everyone that's put on the COVID list for both teams looks to be coming off of it for the most part as well. Look for both teams to get going. Darren Waller's coming back too, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a big mismatch as well. So look for that one to be a bit of a high scoring one. Take the over. Chiefs versus Bengals, 49.5 points, a huge over-under here. I'm going to take the over in no short reason because the games the Chiefs, their games they don't take the over is when they're mollywhopping the other team and they kind of quit trying, with the exception being that Steelers game. The Bengals are not going to go away. Like, they're not just going to sit there and die, even if they're down 20-0. Joe Burrow is going to continue trying to rip that thing and running away from Chris Jones' 40-yard dash run itself. He's going to look up and find T. Higgins in the end zone. He's going to find Jamar Chase. He's going to find Joe Mixon in the flat. So take the over in that one as well, too, because I can see that being 28-31, something really close like that with a lot of points. Like, I just don't see many ways where this isn't a high-scoring game, considering both defenses are good, but not really elite. And the Chiefs' defense has played a lot better, but I think this might be the best offense they've played in a while, maybe with the exception of the Chargers. And, well, that game was clearly an over. That was an over in the fourth quarter and overtime alone. So take the over in this one. And for the final one, Eagles taking on Washington, 46 points. I'm going to take the under on this one because, I'm no Antonio Gibson for Washington, so you're already missing one of your best players. Terry McLaurin, he can only do so much when the quarterback issue is a mess. The Eagles, a run-first team. I look for them to just run relentlessly, rush for like 250 yards and control the heck out of the clock. 21-17, maybe, if that. Like, I just can't see this one being a bit of a high scoring. I was surprised to see 46 points. The Eagles defense is pretty good, actually, too. They do have a good job taking the ball away on top of it. And Washington's defense, they're okay, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop this Eagles running game. So I'm going to take the under in this one. Look for it to be relatively one-sided, if you will. Look for the Eagles to just control the pace and never really be in any danger, but not going to be overly high scoring. So for your betting odds, that's kind of what piques my interest so far this week.
Fair enough. Enough. I like it as always. We'll see what you could win with coming back from that one. I do want to go back to one that you talked about, and it was I believe the 6.5 point spread for the Chiefs.
5.5, getting 5.5 against the Bengals.
Right. Okay, that one. So that actually has dropped to -4 odds.
Which,
-4 point spread.
Is that just a different one that you're looking at? Because I just checked.
Yeah, this one's on Sportsline book. So if you're betting on Sportsline, keep an eye on that. That is a little different. Just
keep an eye on which one it is for all of these as well. Today are all subjective depending on which line you look at. And so by last week, either you lost that Steelers Chiefs one because it's 45.5, or you won it because it's 46. So either way, they either let you down or you came in clutch.
Absolutely. But I do want to go to one game that I'm looking at for the spread, man. Seahawks giving 7.5 to the Lions right now. So you have they're a 7.5 point favorite to the Lions. Like, I'm sorry, but has anybody watched the Seahawks play this year? Are they better than the Lions? Honestly.
Why do you think I didn't pick this one? Because I knew you were the designated Lions spokesman, so I was going to take all of them. I left you something to say.
I'm going to continue my streak of hammering the Lions in a spread situation where they have a great chance to cover. This is an opportunity with Russell Wilson's quote-unquote last home game in Seattle, if you believe the rumors. I mean, they've been playing like crap all season. I'm going to see that continuing, and I'm going to see the Lions potentially not just cover, but win. This is going to be a very interesting 425 game on Sunday, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to pick the Lions this one for sure.
Especially with DeAndre Swift coming back as well, too. Maybe that'll help them get the ground game rolling, which you'll need to do. So that's definitely an interesting one as well, too. And depending on the numbers, I was looking at that one as well, too. It crossed my mind, but I'm like, I'm going to pull back. I'll let Kelsey take this one. This is Kelsey's domain. He is the Lions PR guy. I'm going to roll back.
Look, man, at this point in time, Lions hire me. I'm doing more for your guys' PR than pretty much anybody else has done in the last few years.
I've been impressed lately. You really are giving it all. They're all.
Hey, minus their second win against the Cardinals. You weren't there for them on that one.
No, I regret that.
I was there for them on that one.
I wholeheartedly regret that decision.
That's like the tweet you hang over his head when you go back into his life.
That freezing cold take's just going to sit there forever. 18 weeks of hard work thrown away in 1 week.
And you call yourself a fan, huh?
You call yourself a PR guy.
They finally had given me a win the week before. I was not worried about it at all, to be honest with you.
I do like Lions Seahawks only because I think just looking at what Chicago did last week with Nick Foles, and you guys called it, so bravo to you, by the way. Got to bring that up. I was thinking that the whole game as Nick Foles dramatically comes back and gets a win somehow, and I'm going, neat, 5 wins. So I look at that performance last week. I look at what the Lions have done recently, especially with St. Brown having his own tear. You got Swift coming back. Yeah, that over's looking pretty good right now, if I'm going to be honest. That spread, I don't know. I mean, 7.5, that's kind of, to me, that's kind of a lofty for Seattle with how Detroit's playing. So I don't know if Seattle does cover that spread. I think that's one that I am a little scared of, honestly. If I were to take the Seahawks, you got to put a whole, and with how Detroit's played most games, I mean, they got a lot of one possession games under their belt this year to hang their hat on. Seattle's not exactly played up to snuff. I don't know, man. I get it. I'd be a little timid right now. Take the over, but I ain't doing spreads on this game. Just staying away from that. And you know what? Speaking of Chicago, I try my best to stay away from being the homer guy, but this week I'm kind of, you know what?
Hammer the homer button.
Oh, I am going to. I'm going to smack it with a hammer, as Clark Griswold once said. And I'm going to say that I actually will go with the over with Chicago and New York. And the only reason why is because the Bears this year, and especially as of late, they've said screw it with trying to, and I think it's just more Matt Nagy reverting back to his 2020 self. Screw it with any pass. We're just going to hammer it home with the run, and we're going to do it. They are great between the 20s with that concept. They have been getting chunk yards. I think the Giants are weakened right now, just overall as a unit. They're their team to me that's packed it in for the year and ready to call it an off season. And I think though that you can see that over get broke. I don't know. I'm having a feeling this is like a Bears beatdown game or something where like they'll make up most of the points, and it's just gonna be like we're fighting for our coach, Matt Nagy's last chance of keeping his job, and I'll be like, oh, that's great. I'm glad you guys had a blowout. It's too bad he's leaving town.
It's a trap at the end of the day.
A trap. It's a mental trap for me.
It's Andy Dalton playing for that next contract next year. He's going to go in there back. All right, time to throw for 350 and red rifle my way into my next contract next year with the Browns as the backup quarterback to try and steal Baker's job.
Starting quarterback.
The only other one I will sit at.
I just want to hit it on the head.
The only other one I will mention, just because I think it's insane, at least according to what I'm seeing here for my spreads. Look, I know the Pats have such an opposing defense, and maybe it'll make it a living hell on Trevor Lawrence and company. But I don't even know. 16.5 is still, that's as lofty as you get for a spread that I've ever seen in an NFL game. I will not be taking that. That's the only thing. Like, it's just so lofty for the point differential. It's possible. Blowouts have been the Patriots' nature in some points this year, but I'm just not taking it.
I would be more comfortable if Trevor Lawrence had thrown a touchdown pass since Halloween. That kind of has me a little concerned. Like, damn, they might actually cover the spread. And no James Robinson. Like, who the hell's going to get open on J.C. Jackson? Who's going to get open on it? Devin McCourty? Like, I fear that they might cover the spread and some extra change on top of it. Like, this is the type of, all right, we're pissed off. We've lost 2 games in a row. Bill Belichick empties the clip into the poor Jaguars and wins like 56-3. Because we know Bill Belichick likes to empty the clip into poor basically deerlings that have absolutely no chance in heck. We've seen him do it his whole career. When he gets a chance, he will drop a 50 piece. So I would agree with you under 99.8% of circumstances. This is that 2.2% where I'm like, you could double that point spread. I still might even be taking it.
I've learned a lot about myself this year that I am the conservative spread guy where it's like 7 and below. I'm like, I'll be super confident on it. Be like, oh yeah, we can cover that in any game. But once you get to like 8 to like, once you hit double digits for sure, I start like shivering a little bit. I'm like, do I trust it getting to 10, and 14? I then really start panicking, and I'm like walking out of any sports book away from that.
And that is the right mentality to have 99% of the time, and you do not change that at all. This is the only time when you could possibly go to the dark side, because I have a bad feeling that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a miserable day.
Look, you get cookies from the dark side. Let's be honest about it. Like, at least you get cookies for going and hanging out with Bill Belichick occasionally. But I got to say, I don't know. 16.5 is still extreme for a team that has a quarterback who threw 3 passes in one game. So, and they still won, granted. But I don't think they've really demolished. I don't feel like they're a team that demolishes people. I feel like they're a team that just does enough offensively. I don't think they're going to sit out here, and I don't think we're going to see Mac Jones completely air it out over the top of everybody just because.
Mac Jones
They've demolished some pretty good teams this year. I mean, they had some demolition jobs in.
That's fair. I just mean like in general, I don't think their offense is built that way. I think if it happens, it's going to be a complete fluke type of situation. You just don't see any defense from Jacksonville type of a situation. Whereas I guess it is completely possible. I guess I should stop now while I'm ahead.
Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevens are going to win some fantasy leagues this week.
Hopefully they do, because we got Tony in the championship for our fantasy league, and if he wins, we don't have to pay for the trophy.
Yeah, I'm in the toilet bowl, so like I'm still paying attention, but I will give you my picks as we come back here from our quick halftime. Don't go away. We do have our fantasy start sits and our sleepers right around the corner. Stay tuned, everyone. Back out of halftime here. We're going to be kicking our things off with quarter number 3, fantasy start sits, and even our sleeper picks really with all this, as we'll deliver a few of our options, as it's really either playoff or championship time right now. I will say, just as a funny little anecdote, one of my leagues I still run used to run it all the way till the end of the season. Championship week would be week 17. So not only did you have to deal with the normal issues of trying to get your roster turnover, but you also had to track which teams were sitting starters in a championship game. I will say that the final year we did that, it was there were reasons I had to change. I watched a first place team get demolished because the likes of like a prime Todd Gurley were eliminated because we sat them in LA. I was that cruel person.
That's terrifying. Like I'm glad I got bounced early on. I don't want to be playing into this week or even next week, especially.
Yeah, but most likely if you have a sane commissioner, pre 2018 Zach, pre or post 2018 Zach and onward type of guy. It's championship week for you, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to be picking some people that you might want to be looking out for that will make an impact this week. So I'm going to do one start, one sit, and one sleeper like I usually do. My start this week, if you're looking at matchups, I'm going to go to running back Ronald Jones, who really has the backfield all to himself, playing the Jets this week. Said it had a solid start against Carolina last week. I imagine that momentum is going to keep on going. I know they made that splash with quotation marks signing Le'Veon Bell, but let's be honest, Jones has been in this offense long enough to where he's trusted by Bruce Arians. It's just that, Leonard Fournette's the guy when it's not the case anymore. It's just, and I think Jones is set up for a good postseason run or championship run for you if you need to swap somebody out or have injury woes on the fly. In terms of a sit selection, I got a few options this week that make me kind of go, not so sure if I would want to be dealing with that as my choice. And I'm really going to go back to the receiver options on this one. And for that case, it's going to be probably the likes of, I'm going to go back to a guy I've already mentioned, actually. This is another week where I'm not liking Terry McLaurin. I'm sorry. It's mostly just I'm going to beat that down because Washington has had injury woes or is dealing with COVID said woes again. It seems like it's been sputtering as of late. And if you didn't get the memo last week, I don't know. I would say this is, if you're in a championship scenario, you might want to find a different option or put him as a low flex if you can. I get that his number one option in Washington is, of course, important. But when you have to key in on one guy, and that's your game plan, is to limit an offense to one specific element being removed and then telling him to beat you a different way, I would stay away. And that's the only reason why I've been slamming that one back-to-back weeks so far, if I am being honest. Otherwise, if I'm going to go with a sleeper, I had one in particular, but I'm going to say it's a two-parter, and this is receiver-wise. Give me either Allen Lazard or Brashad Perriman, if I'm being honest. It's really just the matchups coming up here. I think in terms of Perriman, it's pretty obvious they're a little bit receiver depleted, and Perriman has made his impact so far when he's given the chance. I think the Jets just open up that opportunity. It's a Tom Brady tuning up for postseason run. And as for Allen Lazard, Allen Lazard's been streaky at times during his career. Minnesota has not exactly had the best secondary of all right now. And Aaron Rodgers, even with a broken toe, still is happening to play at an MVP level. I think Lazard has a chance to break out for this game and get something, even with Devontae Adams, of course, being such a dominant number one option in Green Bay. Lazard's had his moments. I think that this weekend's going to be another chance for him to get a said moment. So those are my three. Obviously clean. I'm curious to hear what you two have on your plate.
Yeah, so I'm going to sit. I might as well be pretty quick. I got one running back, one receiver that you need to start, and then one you need to sit, one you need just watch out for. And that is, obviously, I'm going to start with the sits. Running back wise, I'm looking at Josh Jacobs. I am not looking forward to him running against this Indianapolis Colts front line. They've stepped up their run game lately, especially. Obviously, COVID situations withholding. Even then, you still have to deal with the speed that is on the field for Indianapolis, and that's one thing Josh Jacobs struggles with is when there's speedy linebackers being able to make the tackles. So I do worry about that. My starter for my running back, though, I'm going to go back to Buffalo and say Devin Singletary. And I'm going to probably hate myself for saying this one. But again, I'm going to try it. I have to give it credit for it. And then also one to watch. If you guys forgot, Chase Edmonds did get activated a couple weeks back. And then he showed last week what he's able to do. If you don't already have him, you're in the championship. Maybe he's sitting there on the market because somebody just didn't care to go pick him up because they're not playing anymore. So potentially you can pick up Chase Edmonds, help you get through this run. Talk about this Cowboys defense, potentially somebody to watch that could beat up this Cowboys defense from the running game. But on the receiving core side, I'm sitting DK Metcalf. I don't think he's going to have a great game. This is one of those situations in the last game of Russell Wilson's career. He's probably going to say, you know what, YOLO, not his career, of his career in Seattle, I should say.
Make it definitive.
Yeah, forget it. I'm just gonna throw it up to Tyler Lockett all game, or give it to his running backs. Who knows? He's just not gonna throw it to DK. I feel like this is gonna be DK's lame game. He just doesn't exist on the field, like we've seen so many times from Tyler Lockett. I think it's gonna be that type of situation. I'm also kind of projecting because I want the Lions to win, but I do have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has continued to dominate, 80+ yards and a touchdown in his last 4 games. I see it continuing. I don't see any reason why there's not a safety or there's not a corner on the Seahawks that I'm really worried about covering him because he's been playing so well. So that's what I'm looking at in this one, though. Just real quick, easy to the point.
All right, so duly noted, DK going off for 250 this week. Got it. The Kelsey coin reverse curse is in effect.
Fair. I've been that wrong lately.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying when you go bullish, that's when it's the football gods bite you back.
That's fair.
But we'll see, though. But for me, I'm looking at, for fantasy, as we talked about, at this point, championship, you're not really changing a whole lot of guys. You're looking at the flex and other spots where you can save points. And I'm looking if you have a defense that has a bad matchup this week, too. Maybe you have the Chiefs and you go against the Bengals, and you don't want that smoke. Because in this point, the biggest thing you can do on defense is not lose points. So maybe look at picking up the Bears defense, who might just be chilling out there. Going against the Giants as well, too. Giants aren't exactly known for their firepower, missing 3 quarters. It's going to be Mike Leonard or Jake Fromm back there. So you automatically feel pretty good about their defense there. Missing a ton of weapons. So maybe the Bears defense, if you're worried about your defense getting negative points, I feel like the Bears are solidifiedly going to give you above 0 going against the Giants. It feels pretty safe, even if they have a bad day. And then looking at fantasy guys, you might want to sub in your flex. We talk in the same vein as Rashad Perriman and Ronald Jones. How about Scotty Miller, Tom Brady's old favorite target for 6-7 weeks at one point too? Maybe he comes in there. I could see him getting loose deep a few times as well. Tom Brady loves him. Surprising amount of times for a fifth on the depth chart receiver. So I can see Scotty Miller getting in and getting a little bit of action for your flex if you just need something to put you over the edge. Guys, I would sit in that same position. KJ Osborne for the Vikings. No Kirk Cousins. You're going against the Packers defense. It's going to double team Justin Jefferson. They're going to just be like, all right, KJ Osborne, good luck. We'll see. I just can't. They struggle getting in the ball when Kirk is there. And now you take away Kirk and you take away Adam Thielen in his 40 as well, too, who's out for the season. It's good. All signs look at KJ Osborne having a very quiet day Sunday night. And then also, every single one of Cleveland's wide receivers I am not playing this week. They're going against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh struggles against the run, surprisingly, this year compared to the past. So I look for, if the Browns are going to win that game, it's going to be Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson each getting 20 carries or just 20 touches. And if they do try to throw the ball, they got to try and block TJ Watt. They got to deal with that front line from the Steelers. And Minkah Fitzpatrick roaming in the backfield. For some reason, the Steelers defense has always given the Browns offense troubles for the most part. It's minus that playoff game, which even then it did give them a little bit of trouble here and there. It's when you throw 5 interceptions and have the first play snap over your head going to the end zone for a touchdown, and you don't have to worry about offensive deficiencies at that point. But I do see, we saw it earlier this year, is a 15-10 game. So I look for it to be an offensively deficient game, and even more so on the passing game for the Browns. If they are going to win this game, It's going to be run heavy, and if they can't get the run going, I don't think the pass is going to save them.
Fair enough.
I say fair too. Absolutely.
It's pretty boring. It's kind of boring in fantasy because at this point you're in the championship. You already know. All right, my guys are playing, and nothing is changing me at this point. We're basically trying to save you some flex points here or there.
Yeah, geez, there might be a sneaky pickup for you somewhere down the road.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and then, like next week it'll be even weirder because, like I said, that's only for like the insane people that schedule it for that. So
I'm just gonna say next week, like you better be packing up your trophy if you haven't already. If you have to make any changes.
If you're playing if you're playing an early preseason game, here's what we think you should get.
Next week it's going to be DJ's best bets and some more bets.
Yeah.
All those Dynasty folks out there actually will be listening. Like, if you play Dynasty, here's what you need to know.
That's what we'll do next. Next week will just be our keep 'em picks.
The keep 'em picks. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what you tune in for, folks. Just keep.
What rookie can you pick up on the waiver wire to get you to get you going next year?
Which guys coming drafted should you take even before you know what team they're on?
I am predicting the future. Chris Olave will be on my keepers list.
That's a safe bet regardless where he goes.
It is.
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. Just
hello, Jahan Dotson, my good friend.
Is it too early to ask for Smith and Jigba?
It's never a bad idea. You might be waiting a couple of years, but it's worth asking now.
I play in a defense position league, so I'm going to keep Cade Hutchinson when he arrives.
No, I'm not taking that guy. He has a very unlikable face.
Sad. Very sad. All right. Well, until next week, folks, we're in the final chapter, the final quarter of this week's 17 edition, the Primetime Pick'ems presented by our buddies at Colorcast, where several of these games, if not all, well, possibly some, we will be broadcasting this week. We always guarantee at least one. So we'll give you that. As we get the overall standings, it's continuing to be quite a dash to the finish. DJ is right there. Let's just say I had a slip up. Hector, pulled away a little bit.
It's not fair.
He's a football guy.
We get within a game of him, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, guys, rattle off a week's best here."
So here's the ultimate crime to me: is Kelsey gets an 11-4 week, and that still is the second worst
behind a guy, just ahead of a guy who didn't put a pick in. Again, I'm just gonna look at my record. 100. I am plus 39 on the season. I have a successful record. If I'm a coach in the world, and that is my record, I've got a job wherever I want to go. It doesn't matter.
This is MLB type of experience. It's good, but it wasn't good enough. That's where you're at currently. You'll be that high win missed wild card team.
I have a 700%, a 70% success rate. I'm batting 700. I would have set records if I'm playing baseball with my type of pick'em success.
Well, let's see if you can close the gap just a little bit. I mean, hey, we still got these pick'ems through the playoffs, so it's not like you can't catch up or anything.
Man, this is killing me though, guys.
And even with the playoffs, remember we do for a little teaser for those out there. Remember, we adjust the points because these games are a little more important. So,
so I can finish second again behind somebody who gets half a game more.
Well, one of us taking the Wonderlic test, so
I'm already taking the Wonderlic test. What are you talking about?
Okay, well, we're going to do it again.
Well, anyways, guys, that is the future events. Yeah. The current class is current events. So let's take a look at what games we're looking at this week.
Kind of buzz on through this. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, DJ, for always keeping the rudder in the correct position as we're going to go into a direct split. It seems like I don't know how I always do this. I always feel like I'm siding with Hector here. But here we go again. An island once more. The Titans against the Dolphins. I'm going to go with the Titans here and be on an island to defend myself. I swear next year we need to get Hector on here to defend it with me because I am getting sick and tired of it, of being ganged up on this damn show. But I do it to myself. So
hold on now. To be fair, yours aren't ever legitimate islands. You just have to defend them as an island.
Oh.
You sided with the football guy. You become the football guy.
Yeah. You're right. Kelsey's really only had the real islands this year. Let's be honest. Anyway, I'll give you my takes, and it's really it's simplistic. It could be torn apart either way, in my opinion. But here's the deal: Tennessee does They do two things great on defense for the most part. Surprisingly, this year, they get pressure and they get sacks, and they're top 10 interceptions in the NFL. They get good. They're good at generating turnovers. My theory is this: you make Tua uncomfortable, you run with surprisingly a top 5 run defense, and basically make what already was a non-existent Miami run game even more non-existent. And you just try and pressure Tua and get interceptions if you can. Now, Tua's been more stable. I'm going to give you that. I know that's going to come up when you guys address it. But I think that they're going to be able to get more pressure than the Saints, and I think that they're going to be able to shut down the run, of course, to allow that to be the case. Otherwise, I think this should be either A.J. Brown's best game of the season or at least one that he needs to play his best game of the season because he's really the only offense in particular they got, unless Deontay Foreman comes out with a 100-yard game like he has had in recent weeks. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that would be also very helpful. It's simplistic. I know that there's holes.
It's a bold pick. It's a bold pick.
But that's bold.
Bold pick, Cotton.
Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Here come the shredders. Let's do it.
All right, Kelsey, you can do the initial shred. I'll follow up.
All right, so I'm just going to start with the offense for the Titans. Unless we get a Smith and Jigba performance from A.J. Brown, no, it's not happening. Ryan Tannehill, I don't think can throw for that many yards, let alone A.J. Brown getting open for that many yards. He'll probably eat Chipotle before the game as well, so you don't even have to worry about it. He might get you 100 yards if you're lucky. So, and on top of that, you don't have Derrick Henry to worry about until Week 18. So that's where I'm looking. I'm looking at the offensive deficiencies from the Titans just not being enough to overcome what has been the freakish defense of the Dolphins. So.
I'm just going to pile onto that. Mine's the same thing. Is Tennessee, there's no Julio Jones. A.J. Brown's got to deal with Xavier Howard, Byron Jones in that secondary as well, too. That squad, Javon Holland. We've seen what that defense has done during this win streak. And on top of that, they're going to slow down the run. And Tannehill's thrown a lot of picks since it's kind of turned into a Ryan Tannehill-led offense as well, too. They've been very turnover-prone because the more times you throw, the more likely chance of something getting picked off. It's not a shot at Tannehill. That is fundamental science of physics in football, basically. No matter who the quarterback is, the more you throw it, the more likely it is it's going to be intercepted. And for Tannehill, it's just kind of cranked up a little bit. And I think the offense will be fine for the Dolphins. It's going to be a really terribly low-scoring game. And the underrated factor is first-round rookie Jalen Phillips has been really, really good during this win streak. During their win streak, he has 7 of his 8.5 sacks for him, including a 3-sack performance against Carolina. So look for the underrated pass rush for the Dolphins to get after as well, too. And make it an ugly game, and I think the offense will be able to just keep it homeostasis. Real easy, 20-17, like kind of like when the Titans played the Steelers a couple weeks ago. Just ugly and hideous, but the other team came out the win. And Miami needs it.
I do want to go back to the Javon Holland comment. By the way, let's not forget the guy's a rookie as a safety who has been out of his mind good. He has been better than literally most safeties who have been playing the game this season, not named Mika Fitzpatrick.
Basically, long story short, that Dolphins defense is legit, and they could win. They could possibly win this game almost on their own.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I mean, obviously, this one we're split, so it can go either way.
I'm shaky on my pick. I'm still going to go with it because I want to be bold this week anyway. I'll
You're not
take
bold
it
when you follow the football guy.
You know me, guys. I will die with a pick easily, and I will make up for it next week, as this one is a legitimate island. So. All of us here, and I'm actually kind of surprised because Kelsey, for the non-confidence he has in his Cowboys, is going to go with the Cowboys here. Usually non-confidence, although they've shown a lot of promise lately. So I mean,
I'm sipping the Kool-Aid at this point in time, I guess. I finally took a little sip of the blue raspberry Kool-Aid this year.
Well, as tradition, the person on the island gets to go and defend it. So, DJ, why are the Cardinals going to be winning this game?
Kind of talked about it earlier as well, too. The Cowboys, they do an outstanding job of destroying the teams they are supposed to and absolutely obliterating, but it's always very, very close with the teams that they're competitive with, whether they win or lose. And the Cardinals, even during this slump, they haven't really got blasted. I mean, 1-possession game against the Colts, 1-possession game against the Rams, 1-possession game early as well, too, with the exception of that Lions game. That was the one that's like, oh, head scratcher. But as well, too, I think Kyler Murray, I'm going to side with desperation on this one. The Cowboys, they're probably taking a little sip of the Kool-Aid as well, too. They're probably a little relaxed. Look for Kyler Murray to go out and put on a virtuoso performance. And one of the few guys who can get away from Micah Parsons when Micah Parsons is going ballistic and take advantage down the field. So even without Nuke, I think the Cardinals desperately will be able to find a way to get out of this one. And their defense will be able to get after the offense, too. I don't think we're going to see a 56-point outburst again.
No, that's fair. For me, I'm just literally hoping out that my pick of the Cardinals finish in season 10-7 holds true. And I think Mike Parsons is he is a flash incumbent at this point in time, and he is that fast that he's going to cause problems. I still think
Rodney Hudson, Kyler Murray's Mr. Krabs Legs. You're going to pick against them now after that for the rest.
After hearing, I cannot stop seeing it. And then on top of that, you had Rodney Hudson, who is his big blocker. I not there still. I still think that injury means a lot more than anybody lets on. And it will even is willing to admit, because he has been poor since Rodney Hudson's gone down. So I think that's a bigger issue than is being looked at. And that's why I'm going to stick with Cowboys. Whether or not Trayvon Diggs gives up 200 yards over the top, he's probably going to get another pick.
By the way, Hudson will play against the Cowboys as well, too.
I'm just going to stick with everything I said.
Just letting you know, I had to double check that. But Rodney Hudson and James Conner are both coming back. So
we'll say everything that I said about Rodney Hudson is now with an ED in past tense, that nobody was making it out to be as big of a miss as as it should have been.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, look, we'll see.
I mean, to me, it was, and that does help the Cardinals' case. I just don't know if this is the game that's a get-right game for Arizona, because right now it's been a reeling team that kind of needs at least some positive performance to finish off a game. That is, you are right. They have played close contests. I'm not going to lie. These haven't been blowouts either. But Dallas is at its hottest point right now. Maybe it is a bit of cockiness, but I also see a team that is getting really at a hot streak at the right time. This is when you're supposed to be showing that you are a legitimate playoff contender, is during these last 3 to 4 weeks of the season leading up. They've already clinched things down. Now it's about getting that playoff seed. The Cardinals do stand in the way of that. And I think you're playing your best football when it matters most. This is going to be a playoff atmosphere type of contest. I also will say that at least when we saw if DeMarcus Lawrence is getting hot right now, Micah Parsons can do whatever the heck he wants. This doesn't have to be his individual performance. So I know that Murray can run away from both of them, really, but it's hard to run away from two guys going opposite directions at any given moment.
Add Randy Gregory into that as well. He's
true that.
Fantastic last couple of weeks as well. So we'll see. This will be interesting to see. But
Hudson coming back will make or break, I think, part of that pressure, and just reading any of the blitzes that will come Kyle Murray's way. I mean, Murray can do it too, but a good center, as we all know, helps dictate and, of course, evade and redistribute said pressure in the best way possible. Hudson is one of those guys that'll be crucial. As we now are getting into crunch time, let's get into our third game. Another split, but it's one that, of course, is going to be a little closer to home for pretty much all three of us here. I'm kind of adopting Cleveland as almost like my other surrogate fandom here. Steelers taking on the Browns.
They understand the Bears plight as much as anybody else does.
They do. They really do.
But, well, since I'm the one by myself with the football guy here, I'll speak for the football guy and saying the Browns still control their own destiny with a little bit of help. And that starts with beating the Steelers. Plus, you have Big Ben in his last game at home. Again, I don't like last games in a person's career at home. It has never worked out well. Like, in my eyes, I don't see them often working out well when they're going for the playoffs. Usually it's like they'll lose that game. So I think this is another one. And also, the offense has not gotten any better for the Steelers. Najee Harris is the only offense still, and without him, obviously he's going to try to do the most you can get out of him, but it's still not enough at the end of the day. I think there's a lot that needs to be said about this team going forward. They need to fix a lot of things in the offseason, but we'll see. That's why I'm going to the Browns.
DJ, you speak for me.
Mine's pretty quick and simple. Both offenses are pretty mediocre, but Baker and the Browns offense are more likely to turn over or do something a little more reckless. As for all of Big Ben's faults, he hasn't been a turnover machine this year. So I think a couple turnovers and Chris Boswell not getting destroyed on a fake field goal, we're looking at another 12 to 18 type of game. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be close, but the Steelers, I think, make just one or two fewer mistakes.
A little more personal, too, for Big Ben in one of his final games as well against a division rival. Folks, that's going to do it for this edition of 4th and 4, our Week 17 edition of the show. Thank you very much. We'll be back for the conclusion of the regular season, but we got plenty of playoffs coming up, too. This ain't the last bit you'll see of us. So thank you, as always, guys. Be sure to go on our social accounts, follow us there, especially for Belly Up Sports. We appreciate that. And until next week, next Sunday, we'll catch you then. Stay tuned.